facilitating the client's journey of empowerment and growth in session. So once again, I welcome you, Tamanna.
Thank you so much, Shikha.
Other speakers of today's sessions are Ranjit Matthews, our alumni of PGDRDM Batch 6, presently working as Assistant Manager in Don Bosco Tech. He has previously worked with Odisha SRLM as a young professional. He has also done an MA in Rural Development and is pursuing PG Diploma in Data Science from IIIT Bangalore. We also have with us Rashika Sharma from batch 16th PGDRDM. She presently works as a young professional in RGAVP, Government of Rajasthan. For today's session, we have our moderator Lalit Daniel, alumni of PGDRDM batch 9th. He is an academic and a researcher. He has done his master's in social work from Nirmala Niketan School of Social Work. He has had stints in academia and corporate sectors in addition to the development sector. On behalf of our Alumni Association, I welcome all the speakers of today's session. So before I start this session, we have a few housekeeping rules. First of all, I request all the participants to kindly keep your mics muted. You also requested to keep your videos on. And at the end of this session, so now I would request Lalit to take this session forward with our valuable speakers. So over to you, Lalit.
Thank you, Shikha, for that wonderful introduction. And I sincerely hope that we are able to do justice to all of your great introductions. So, as Shikha rightly pointed out, we have with us a brilliant panel today. And our topic for discussion today revolves around the topic of mental health and well-being for rural development professionals. Uh, with coronavirus or the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown that has been induced as a result and as a measure to contain it, uh, mental health has assumed a severe importance given the fact that uh, we are closed in at homes and we are in each other's faces 24 by 7, even if they are our very close family members. So therefore it is of great importance that we take care of our mental health also, since simply because that lockdown has resulted in severe economic downturn, which in turn results in job loss, which again, if you're not able to bring in money, you are facing a lot of issues at home, inability to pay EMIs, all of those challenges are there. So that is the broad context that we need to talk about in terms of mental health. So the format that we are going to assume today is I'm going to request Tamanna to talk or set a broad canvas of mental health as it is. I mean, mental health does not mean that we go coco, we go crazy over. It just doesn't mean that, right? So, Tamanna, if you could be kind enough to paint a broad canvas for us and tell us what exactly is mental health, mental well-being, and then we could take it ahead from there.
Thank you so much, Shikha and Lalit. I think just like Lalit was saying, I think we really have to do justice to this wonderful bios that you have given of us, Shikha. Thank you everyone for having me. It's indeed a pleasure to know that premier institutes are really concerned about mental health, something that's really at the forefront with the pandemic and just generically as well. What I'm going to do is what I tell everyone usually when I have a session is when we step into the session, what I'd want you to do is give me a quick feeling check-in of how is it that you are currently feeling in the session or coming to the session. And we'll do this in a bit of a different way. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. The way that we are going to do it is in terms of traffic lights and colors. So green would mean that currently I'm feeling quite happy. I'm looking forward to what's going to happen in the session. I'm feeling a bit motivated. I'm feeling good. Yellow could mean more like not feeling that okay, I'm fine, somewhere in the middle. And red could mean, yeah, I'm feeling a bit low. I don't know what's going to happen in the session next. I'm not feeling too great. I guess I'm quite tired. And all these three colors are welcome. So I'd just like us to quickly, whether it be through a chat box or verbally sharing, to just share how you're feeling when you're coming inside into the session. And I think what I'm going to do is, yeah, Lalit, I saw you
Green.
unmute. Green. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Anil Kumar Verma ji, you have raised your hand. Please do tell us. Chaitanya is saying green. Okay, thanks, Chaitanya. Okay, green as well. Okay, you don't. Anyone else? Ranjit, because I can see your face, and Rashika, because I can see yours too.
Yeah, green.
Ah, green.
It's green.
Hmm. 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 There's a theme of green. Okay. Okay. Yellows and red feelings are welcome too. Just to put it out there. I'm feeling both. I guess I'm feeling green as well because this is something I'm driven about. Mental health. Feeling somewhere yellow as well because I don't know how it's going to pan out. How the energy is. So I've heard some people say green. Is there anyone else? Karthik, I might have to ask you. Karthik is like, I'm green. Okay, great. So I'm sensing that a lot of you are looking forward to how this is going to pan out, feeling motivated. And that's great. I welcome all those feelings. For those who weren't able to share, even if you are in yellow as well as red, that's quite okay. I think as we progress towards the session, hopefully we'll find ourselves changing that feeling or colors as well. Great. So before we move forward, I think Shika has done half my work with this. But something that I really like to set across is what I call group norms. One that I could offer is confidentiality. So whatever we speak about, if any stories, narratives, organizations come up, what we're going to do is we're going to keep it confidential. What's going to be spoken about here is going to be here. Anything else that you would like to bring forth to this session that perhaps I could also follow? Hmm. Thank you, Zin, for switching your video on. It's nice to see a new face. Yeah. Hmm. Anything else that you would like to add that we could possibly have for our group? Hmm. Okay, all the greens who said that they are really feeling green, I'd push them to just think about what else is it that we could have.
I mean, it's fine if someone is not doing well. If like,
Hmm.
please, no judgments, or do not be judgmental of anything anyone is feeling.
Hmm. Thank you, Vibhu. So no judgments. If someone is bringing forth, let's say, feeling somewhere around red, yellow, not feeling that great, that's something that should be acceptable. Great, thanks. Okay, I think on the lines of what Vibhu also shared, sort of respecting each other's opinions. I think that's what you meant. So whatever opinions do come in, we won't be judgmental about them. Hopefully we can keep that sense of respect. We will actively participate. I'm just going to stress on this a bit. I understand that usually during my sessions, I'd like it if participants are also a bit more want to speak up about their own experiences. So if you could just actively participate, not be as hesitant, I think it will come eventually. Something that Shikha had already stated, if we could keep our microphones on mute unless you want to share, and videos could be on for better engagement. I think we're a smaller group and it will sort of help us connect a bit more if we could have videos on. Yeah. Okay. Now keeping these norms in mind, just to talk about what we're going to do ahead. I think, like Lalit said, we're just going to understand what truly is mental health, bridging your understanding of it based on experiences, stories, perhaps your own personal experiences, and my understanding of what mental health is. We'll bridge that gap to understand and to realize what really this word, which is sort of quite mystic, I think, but to sort of demystify what mental health really looks like. And I think then identifying concern areas through personal narrative, and then unfortunately due to paucity of time might not be fully able to indulge in this, but finding some ways to handle these concerns or themes that come up from these personal narratives. Hmm. And in order to do that, to understand, I think the first purpose, like we spoke about, of what is mental health, what I'd ask is, and this is quite rapid, you don't have to give me a scientific definition when I ask you this question. It could be just a couple of words that you put in the chat box. Uh, what comes to your mind when I ask you this question? What is mental health? I'm going to stop sharing here a bit and take a pause and let people come forth and tell me what is it that you, one or two words that come to your mind when I ask you what is mental health. Hmm.
I hope the panelists are also allowed to share.
Of course, I think that would be great, Lalit. Hmm.
So I guess when in my mind, when it comes mental health, when you speak about it, are two broad words: mental illnesses and well-being. So something as small as anxiety to something as serious as schizophrenia.
So I'm picking up words like you're saying, Lalit, anxiety, could be schizophrenia. Chaitanya has said well-being. Anyone else? Rashika, Ranjit. Unfortunately, because I can see your faces, I might be asking you more often than the others.
Fears such as claustrophobia.
Ah, okay. Fear, such as claustrophobia. Great. Okay. Or anyone else? Hmm. If you don't feel like sharing, you can always put this on the chat box. Hmm. Mr. Zin, I'm seeing you switch on your video again. Would you like to share your thoughts a bit? Mhm. Okay.
Anything that affects your uh, mind, uh,
Hmm.
whether it is stress or or let me put it in this way, um, any other disease you can explain it with some symptoms. So this also has symptoms, but general cases they are not able to articulate it properly and share
Hmm.
to someone that this is, or they have they just explain it through their situations. So it mostly who are experts in this, they identify that they are facing some mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
So that comes to my mind. uh,
Ah, okay. So two parts to this. You're saying that a mental health professional can identify, but also something that I heard was stress. Okay, thanks for sharing, Ranjit. Anyone else? I just urge us if we could also put it in the chat box, apart from the panelists as well. If there's anyone else, I'd love to know your views also. What really mental health brings up for you? Shikha, frustration, stress. Okay, thanks, Shikha. Ah, okay, Karthik. So you're saying peace of mind is something that it brings up for you. Great. Hmm. A couple of more, two, three. Ah, Anil, work pressure. Great. So, yes, Mr. Zin, you've raised your hand. Is this by accident or please feel free to speak? You don't have to raise your hand. Okay. Just tell me if you need some help. Okay. So, work. I've heard work pressure, frustration, stress, something that Ranjit, you were also talking about stress, peace of mind, frustration, fear. Lalit, something that you mentioned was could be as diverse as schizophrenia or even depression, which is something that we hear a lot. Okay. So, mm, okay, I just deadlines of work. Hmm. Lots of themes of work coming up. That's interesting. Okay, so with all the things that I think all of you have also mentioned, um, mental health can sort of be looked at as a spectrum, something that's quite diverse and it's not just concentrated on one aspect. What all of you mentioned could also come within this spectrum. And let's just talk about that a bit. Let's talk about something that was mentioned before, depression. It's also become quite popular with a celebrity coming in, raising awareness about it, also realizing that the WHO talks about depression as being one of the highest, especially in India. So depression is perhaps on the severe part of the spectrum, which can also have a varying. You can see a chat 1 second. The feeling that there is something that's not good mentally, but I'm not able to identify what the issue is. Ah, okay. Thanks for sharing, Karthik. I'll try and see if that's something that is also on this spectrum that I've created. Okay. So depression is something, another more severe form would be OCD, which is known as obsessive compulsive disorder, where you have compulsive thoughts which lead to a certain behavior or multiple behaviors. And let's start going towards the left of this spectrum. This is the most severe part that we spoke of. uh, if we see, it could also be relationship concerns. Could be relationship concerns with the family, with the partner, romantic or platonic. Could be with your child. Could be with work. Could be with your boss. Could be with a classmate, a peer. So relationship is also something that could come up. It would be a more milder form, rather in the medium, but it could be a rather more milder form or somewhere within this spectrum of relationships, and how that could impact our mental health. Something that could also be present is anxiety. Again, this is more on the medium, could be severe as well, but feeling of worry, nervousness, unease, not knowing what to do. Anxiety is also something that would come within the spectrum. Something that would also come within the spectrum is sleep, not being able to sleep as much or getting great sleep for two days and then finding yourself not being able to sleep for 3 days, or having very broken sleep which is impacting your work life, which is impacting your relationship, and is perhaps providing you with some anxiety. that is also something that could come within the spectrum of mental health concerns. Something that could be also present is safety. Often developmentally, I think you all are developmental professionals, so you'll be quite experts in this as well. Sometimes it could be safety. Developmentally, we go through various stages of our life. Passing out from college, leaving home to go start working, becoming an adult, earning money, then getting married, perhaps having a partner, etc., etc., having children. So, how do we define safety for ourselves? Do we feel safe when we have to go to perhaps a community or a different district which we are not at all familiar with? Have to go to a metropolitan city when we haven't stayed in one? Perhaps safety looks differently for us then. So, something around the medium and milder form could also be safety. It could also be stress, something that someone also mentioned. It could be stressful situations, perhaps at a workplace, having a difficult conversation about remuneration. All of this could lead to a lot of stress, which could be also on the milder form. Uncertainty, something that Karthik just wrote on the chat, not knowing what's happening. I know that there's something wrong, but I don't know what it is. Hmm? Usually, we find ourselves in those places, especially when we are leaving a place of safety, such as college or a great workplace, and then moving on to different things. Something that's quite out of our comfort zone, which creates a lot of uncertainty. I don't know what's going to happen next. Where am I going to find my foot next? And that could also be included within your milder form of the spectrum of mental health. Another thing could be eating, not being able to eat. Another thing could be a lack of motivation, something that a lot of us are experiencing perhaps during the pandemic. Not being able to do much, feeling really tired. And if you see the spectrum, as you can see, it's extremely diverse. There is not one thing that defines mental health concerns. It could be depression, OCD on the most severe form, or mental health disorder. It could be something that's more towards the medium, where relationship concerns, perhaps not being able to sleep properly, having some bouts of anxiety. It could be on the milder form, eating, stress, feelings of safety, uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen next, and also a constant feeling of being tired. Yeah? Hmm. But the thing about this spectrum is that it's not set in stone. That's why it's called a spectrum. That all of these things are dealable. This is something that you can work with. It's something that you can have and live with, live a normal life with. But what's important to recognize is that it's not only one part. It's important to recognize that mental health is not just the depression and the OCD and the schizophrenia and heightened sense of panic attacks of fear, which is claustrophobia, Rashika, something that you were talking about. But it's also the milder forms that there is in our developmental trajectory, difficult times of work, difficult times of having children, being worried about where they're going to go in, having times of getting married, but also settling down, finding home. There are also these little aspects that could be more subtle, but that we need to identify. Hmm. Just a quick check in because I understand that we've spoken about this. I'd like to just this very useful thing that Zoom has, reactions, right at the bottom. If it's making sense, if you're there with me, just to put a thumbs up because I can't see faces. So it would be quite useful for me if I can see a thumbs up, which makes me know that you're present. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Amruta, Naman, thank you. Thank you, Sajid. Okay, great. So, just like I was saying, the spectrum and the subtle parts are just like physical health. When we accidentally cut ourselves, because of it could be a paper cut या कोई भी दूसरा cut हो, when we cut ourselves हमें पता है कि it hurts. So it's a small thing, but it hurts. And we take care of it, right? We put a band-aid, we'll clean it, we'll put soframycin, perhaps we'll put some other skin ointment, but we'll put something to take care of it so that it heals, so that it doesn't become worse. Yeah? Even though it's a small thing, but we'll do something at that point to take care of it, just like we do for our body. And it's the same thing with mental health. The milder forms that are present, we need to somewhere identify even the milder aspects of uncertainty, stress, difficult conversations at work, relationships, and not ignore them, but take care of them so that we are able to deal with it, so that it doesn't become a volcanic eruption, that it keeps accumulating and then it just blasts. Now, knowing that mental health, like just like the spectrum, can be quite diverse, I understand that mental health is also unique to different individuals. And what I'd ask is, uh, I think Rashika and Ranjit, if I'm not wrong, Lalit, have really graciously stepped forward to share some of the concerns that perhaps developmental professionals might be facing. You think it's a good idea if we
That's
could
the,
open up?
yeah, so that's the second part of
Yeah.
the conversation that we intend to have.
Hmm. And I'm wondering if we can step into that so that we can identify concern areas or themes that would come up.
Right. So let me take ahead from what you have just
Hmm.
spoken. So as you rightly said, mental health is actually a spectrum of various challenges that we may face mentally, but also it is a spectrum of challenges in terms of, and correct me if I'm wrong here, in terms of where we see it happening. It can be either as a person, or in a family setting, or it can even be in a community setting. It could manifest anywhere, and it need not necessarily be with us. uh, it can be with anybody. That's one thing, I guess. And so taking ahead from there, I believe that it's and taking ahead from the fact that it's a spectrum of issues that we are facing. um, uh, it's very pertinent to look at all of these levels, all of these concerns. So we'll start off with you, Rashika, right? As we since we look at it, since we're looking at a spectrum, we should also understand that each of us face different types of challenges, right? And Rashika, you being a very new professional who's just stepped into the development sector space, what are the challenges mentally, emotionally, that you probably faced when you started your career, or when you started with your course, and then we could probably take it ahead from there.
Thank you, Lalit sir. Good evening, all. Firstly, big thanks to the organizers for having me here on the platform with some eminent speakers. And since the panel discussion rightly says about mental health of development professionals, I think as ma'am and everybody else would agree with me that it's not a mainstream topic. It has just started entering into the mainstream. I would also like to quote Glenn Close. She is an American actress and who has lent her voice to The Simpsons. She says that what mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor, and more unashamed conversation. So, beginning with this, I now come up with the challenges that I faced and people of my age group faced, which I am representing. As soon as we entered this development sector, right from our course at NIRD, it was evident that mental health is going to be our priority. Since, and fortunately, our curriculum was also designed in such a way that it made us adapt to that lifestyle, which we soon had to go in our workplace. Secondly, uh, we were a batch of students who faced the pandemic and we had to launch our careers. COVID 19 took place and it was our placement time. And the biggest anxiety that we faced was that, will we have any recruiters to our campus? And I guess most of us will agree with that, that only SRMs would come, no CSR or big companies would come, despite investing our time, money, and energy for 1 year or two. And as Lalitsa mentioned, that it is a tier system, individual, family, and then the community. So it did not affect only us, but also our families and parents. They were also worried that now what? What will be the situation next? Will they sit at home again? Something like that. Third issue that I would like to raise is that since most of us had taken education loans, we needed this placement to refinance that, get back into the banks and all that. Also, situations now, luckily some recruiters came to the campus. We had our video CVs. We gave our interviews online. But then when we entered, now the another mental health stress or issue was that we were comparing ourselves with our friends from school and college who are earning good amount of income and not living in some remote areas which has electricity issues or network issues also. So this was another challenge that we faced. In fact, daily at night, it's a dilemma for us whether we wish to continue in the sector or not. This is a big thing. I would also like to bring up this cause that while working, now the third level of tier system I'm talking about, that is the community. While working, we entered this sector with this thought that we would like to contribute some change to the people and the masses. However, when the masses itself are not willing to accept the change, then it again sort of a boomerang for us that it's a helpless situation and we cannot do anything for that. We feel that why are we here then? It's like, as ma'am would agree, existential crisis, terms like that, and angst. But luckily, if you remember, in the very first session of our course taken by Murli sir, he gave us 2 golden words, that is hope and faith, which help us in this race of survival of the fittest. I guess you all would agree with that. I would also like to take up this issue that being a woman in this development sector, which is entirely a field job, how is it different from my male counterparts? The major issue is of safety concerns, and especially in a situation like pandemic, when we have to travel in the public transport with our masks on, sanitizers, everything, all our baggage. It is very difficult, not only at the individual level, but also back home. We have relatives, we have neighbors, and a huge network of people around us who are there, maybe not to support, sometimes support and also sometimes, show us the real thing that why are you there? Why can't you just do a job like a teaching profession, which is still considered good for women? So this, and so I would conclude that though we entered this space, and because we wanted to do it, we need to have this work-life balance and sort of a mental peace. And with this, since it was a Sunday today, and most of us would be relaxing apart from doing our pending PPTs and other stuff. Luckily for this webinar that we all have joined, at least 27 people are here. I think apart from Instagramming, YouTubing, and other Facebooking, etc., it's a good platform that we have all connected here on a topic like mental health, especially for development professionals. And here I would like to give an example of a web series called The Panchayat. If you would have watched it, it actually depicted the work life of a development professional at the ground level. So concluding with Gandhi's quote again, I say that happiness is what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. Thank you.
That's very eloquent, Rashika. Very eloquent. Uh, you know, there's only one person. I mean, I've done a little bit of a reading about mental health and watching a couple of movies related to mental health. Um, uh, what you said, it really touched me. It really echoed a lot with me, and I'm sure it would echo a lot with my other colleagues across batches with what you've said. Uh, and I was just taking notes as you were speaking. One thing that really struck me was John Nash's Nobel Prize acceptance speech. It has actually been remade into a Hollywood movie, but it's he goes on to say it's only in the wonderful equations of love that I see any reason at all. And John Nash was a schizophrenic who at the height of his schizophrenia proposed the game theory, which is basically a pivotal thing around economics and a whole lot of other things. So again, it really evoked those sort of imagery to me. Hats off to you on the very eloquent way of putting things. And above all, a broad spectrum of issues. Tamanna, what do you say? I mean,
I agree, Lalit. Thanks so much, Rashika, for sharing. I think that was just wonderful. You managed to really well sort of conceptualize the whole journey of how it has been for students, specifically your batch who've gone through the pandemic and reached where you are right now. I think a lot of themes that were coming up as well is one that I could think of is uncertainty. I think something that we mentioned in the spectrum as well, uncertainty of what's going to happen, specifically since we've been hit by something that humanity has never seen, a pandemic, and that changes your way of being, of engaging, of interacting, of just being with other individuals, being even with yourself. And that shift can be quite difficult or can be quite challenging, I think, for professionals who are looking for jobs, but also for other people who might currently be in jobs as well. So that's something that I could pick on. I think that's extremely important to be cognizant of. The second thing that I was picking up on is the sense of work life balance. I think nowadays, in order to really use work and life as something that's more integrated, the latest term that psychologists have come up with is work life integration, so that it doesn't seem like a balancing act, but also something that's more integrated in an individual's life. So something that I heard from you is also work-life integration, because how do you manage work? How do you manage your personal life? And these specifically for, I think, a gendered lens as well, because it is in fact true that women have different experiences because of the socio-cultural context. And if you are to go in a community setup, if you're to work in specifically the developmental sector, the concerns might be quite varied, although quite nuanced as well, might be quite varied for women rather than men. Not dismissing that, I think men also have, obviously, everyone has their own set of concerns, but it could add in a lot with this gender lens that you have provided us with. So uncertainty, work-life integration. Um, I'm hoping that maybe we could hear from Ranjit as well, and then we could specifically talk about a couple of themes that are common between both narratives. What do you say, Lalit?
that sounds great, actually. Ranjit, over to you. I mean, you come from Don Bosco with a lot of experience. In fact, you represent another end of the spectrum when we talk about it. Someone who has had a certain degree of experience, certain degree of exposure to the world. You know, so I guess a certain degree of cynicism as well accompanying that. So, what do you think? What are your takes? What are the challenges that someone in your age group would have faced? I'm very sure while the spectrum remains the same, while the manifestations remain the same, the way it is affecting you would be very different.
Yeah. Uh, Thanks for giving me this chance to share something related to uh, the experiences which most development professionals have, and which are not addressed properly in our spaces. So I would like to start with some um, reports or a studies outcomes which I just came across when I was looking for some articles on this. So this study was done before the pandemic, and certain outcomes which I would like to read out. If there are people of my age group, they would definitely relate it to either themselves or to their own peers. So this report was prepared, or the study was done by Dalberg Advisors and Youth Alliance. So some of you might have read this. This is some 2 years back. So I guess if pandemic, considering pandemic, this might have increased. So this is nothing to make anyone worry for their future with development sector, but to have a common understanding that these are things happening around or with almost all the development professionals. So some statistics which came out from this study. Then I would like to share some of my own experience, or which I have experienced or heard from my own colleagues. uh, so some of the stats are like this. Out of the professionals who were interviewed or who were considered for the studies, a quarter of these development sector professionals were considering leaving the impact sector altogether. So a quarter of those who were studied, they were considering to leave the impact sector or the development sector altogether. Nearly half want to change jobs. Sorry, I forgot the to tell you what was the study about. The study was about the mental health of social impact professionals. So that was the study. So nearly half want to change the jobs. 71% of the respondents experienced a loss of faith and belief in their work. 67% felt an increasing sense of indifference around what to create change, wanting to create change. They were getting numb. Overall, 46% of the respondents felt a declining motivation or enthusiasm for work, a problem more prevalent in early tenured professionals. So 73% of people experienced at least one symptom of poor mental well-being in the past 6 months of that study being conducted. 80% of the junior staff members are unable to disassociate from work compared to those who are in leadership roles in development sector. Now some structural part which they have mentioned: employees at relatively large organization with budget more than 50 lakh annually are 1.6 times more likely than those at smaller organizations to worry about work situations that are out of their control. A large percentage of people working in rural areas showed more severe mood swings compared to their urban counterparts. And then some positives: access to a support network of peers and recognition of their work were two distinct positive contributions to well-being. And then 75% of people who engage directly with the end beneficiaries felt positive mental health effects. And also those who understood that their work is resulting in something good, so they also felt, they commented that they are having good mental health, or not much stress, even though they are having or doing work which require a lot of time, and they need to be away from their family. So coming to what I have been experiencing, or I have heard from others. So generally, I would put it here. Maybe many of us might be in the similar situations. So it would give them maybe encouragement to them that people are there who are in same situation as well. So one thing in the workspace, if we take generally, So what I have noticed is that most of the development organizations pay less compared to their higher responsibilities. So that mostly demotivates them. uh, there are certain percentage of people, even though their remuneration is very low, they would work hard and thinking of the greater good of the things they are going to impact upon. They might be working well, but most of the people are dissatisfied with their low remuneration. And some organizations, due to their budget issues or maybe funding issues, there might be cases that uh, we don't get incremental remuneration or positional changes uh, every time. And maybe for continuous 3 or 4 years you are in the same position, same job responsibilities, doing the same activity. And if together with that, if the your results are not coming, the impact on the society or the beneficiaries whom you are targeting, if that also not comes, it greatly affects mentally and gives great stress to the person who is in that situation. And if you are looking for a change in job, so I have been working in this space for around 6 to 7 years. I have only changed one organization from which I got placed through NIRD and then to the present organization. I have tried for several changes, but certain issues come up. Uh, Most cases which I understood that it is beyond my control. So one I can put it for here, one or two, which many of you who are experienced or who are newly into this space may experience if this situation continues, is such kind of environment continues. One is long interview process and then rejection at the last moment. So you are put through a long interview process, maybe for 3 months you are called, maybe the organization who had invited or selected your application may be having some issues, so they are taking long time to decide on whether on your application. And then at the last moment they say you are not selected, so that gives great demotivation or discouragement. And the skills demanded by the organizations when you are applying for a job, and then the skills which you have acquired, maybe not in your control that you get every skills required as and when you are growing in your career. So that also gives you great stress, and then you try for improving yourself, working hard again, studying, or going for any online courses, uh, like that. Then lastly, work-life balance. It was discussed earlier. So in my case, if I relate it like this, when I was single, so it was easy for me to travel anywhere in India. I mean anywhere means any place, any village I can go, and there was no much issue. But now, when I'm married, there are certain other responsibilities coming into my life, and then taking up jobs which require a lot of travel is a great difficulty. And I have been confined to certain areas, and then cannot travel maybe more than 15 days due to the family responsibilities. And if I'm forced to travel by the organization, then that impacts my family life as well. So picking some things from the report which I read and then quoted here, some important things which come up in such scenarios is that the development organization should more focus on mental health of their staff. So what happens, or what I experienced was, maybe others have different opinion, but what I experienced was that the health related aspects of employee, especially the mental health and the stressful environment, demotivation, these are not handled properly at most of the development sector organizations. And it is high time that we recognize such things or such issues are there, and then the organizations put in certain amount of efforts to address such issues. And social sector organizations need to recognize that this, I am quoting from the report, social sector organizations need to recognize that the mental well-being of their workers is non-negotiable and should commit to addressing this issue. So there should be some support system, maybe inside the organization as well as outside. So one best example of outside support system is our own alumni platform. So we are all of same sector. Maybe some of us might have left development sector for any other, pursuing any other career, but most of us are still in this spectrum of development, uh, and we most of us are also in development professionals still. So we all can help each other in identifying such areas, maybe somebody in distress of jobs, and then helping each other out and taking up such topics like today's session. It was very important that we address it in common platforms and take it up slowly. At least in our culture, these things are not addressed properly. So thank you for giving me time. I think I took more time. Thank you so much.
Right. Ranjit, thank you so much for your comments. I'm sure you would have put quite a lot of thought crystallizing all those years of experience, the challenges and difficulties that you've faced. Before we proceed, I'm sure, I believe there are almost 30 people who are watching this on YouTube, on Zoom platform, and many others who are viewing this via live stream on YouTube. So, as Tamanna is dissecting both of the issues and the comments, may I also request others who are watching to please share your inputs in form of chats. We would be more than happy to take your queries and probably try and respond to them as per what time permits. So Tamanna, and also sorry, I'm so sorry about that. And also Ranjit and Rashika, if while it's being dissected, if you feel that some inputs from your end would add value, please feel free to comment and jump in. So Tamanna, as
Hmm.
they pointed out,
Yeah.
a whole lot of concerns, right?
Hmm. That's really, Ranji, thank you so much for sharing. I think I really like the study that you put across because I think it really resonates with what a lot of individuals working within the developmental sector might be facing. And it's interesting to see both because Rashika, you've just transitioned from passing out to uh, dealing with this whole pandemic situation and getting into the workplace. And Ranjit, with your amount of experience and your transition as well, like you spoke a bit about family life and your transition there as well. I think such wonderful nuances came up. Something that really stayed with me, Ranjit, what you spoke of was almost half of the individuals, the participants who were in the study, wanted to leave or change their jobs, which is a huge amount. And you mentioned something about indifference or losing faith, losing a sense of belief. And that's something that you said about while working as well because of remuneration. Many other professionals might feel this way that um, there is a sense of demotivation because in the developmental sector, talking about passion, do it for passion, do it for the greater good, is something that might be given more precedence over the person's remuneration or travel or where they're staying or the sort of lifestyle that job requires. And it's interesting to me because it sounds a lot like something known in psychology when it reaches a phase, burnout. Some of the instances that come towards burnout or come over duration are lack of motivation, feeling tired constantly, feeling or questioning, is it worth it? What am I doing? What am I going to do next? Is this really what I want to do? And it seems like these questions, or sometimes even if you're working in a community setup and talking to someone, you might feel that the same passion or drive that you had when you were in your first year of work and now that, 6th, 7th, 8th year of work might be quite at different levels. And if you're sort of feeling all of this might also have something to do with a sense of burning out, feeling that you've given so much of your this passion, that you're suddenly realizing that it's taking away from you as an individual. And what I would recommend is, again, what Rashika, you were also speaking of, is that it's a 3-tier system, right? It's individual at the core, then it's family, then it's the community at large, or the work that you do on a more macro level. But if I can just ask that, if the core is weak, everything around it will shake, will not be that great. And basically, then what's more important is to focus on the core, focus on the individual, so that we don't end up, as I said, these smaller aspects of not eating as much, milder things, uncertainty, not being able to sleep as much, getting some bouts of anxiety, not knowing, feeling tired, lack of motivation. All of these things, just like that paper cut, are very important in the initial stage to identify, so that we don't reach a place of, let's say, burning out, where a lot of us, our drive, our passion is taken away. Hmm. And something that can be done for this is boundary setting. It's a word that's used a lot. It's used a lot, like set your boundaries, you must have boundaries, your boundaries should not be as permeable. But no matter how cliche, I think it holds so much value to relook at your boundaries. So that extra phone call that you're getting because of the pandemic, 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday, is it important? Is it that important that it just cannot wait? Because if it just cannot wait and your boundary is such that it extends that, it's like, okay, I need to take up this call, I need to speak at 10 a.m., 11 p.m. on Saturday, it's something that will continue. It is something almost that we are saying it's okay, doesn't matter, it's just once. But then it becomes a pattern. And after 3 years, we realize that a call at 10 p.m. that's normal. Don't you know? That's just normal. That's how we work, because it's become a part of our system. So answering an email, answering a call, oh, this is how we work. But how do we start setting our boundaries? Because it's so relational. So sometimes saying no, I'm sorry, I have another engagement. I'm sorry, is it okay? I have to leave by 8:30. I understand that this work is very important. Can I do it? Give them a timeline. Can I do it by 8 a.m.? Can I do it by 12 noon tomorrow? Is that possible? So that setting of boundaries is something that I feel like, even for us as mental health professionals, uh, working in social sectors, etc., it's something that's what's focused on is passion, the sense of greater good. But it shouldn't come at the cost of our own sense of self. Because eventually, I'm just going to, one second. Because eventually, one second, we don't want to reach a stage of this where we're just sitting around and saying this is fine. It's completely, absolutely fine. Hmm. Yeah. So let's just pause here for a minute. And since both of you have shared such important narratives, I'm wondering what else the others who are on this forum also have to say about this. Is there anything that you'd like to drop in? Is some aspects of what Rashika and Ranjit shared resonating with you as well? Maybe similar experiences, similar things that you've heard in your trajectory or your journey as a developmental professional, before we go forward.
And not just heard, probably how has it affected you as an individual, and maybe the way it affected you, how did it affect your families as well?
Hmm. How to set limits when it is highly affected your job where you require it at most. Hmm. Thanks, Shika, for that. So, what I'm understanding from what you've written is, how do I even begin to set boundaries when my job is such that it requires me to extend myself? I think I'd like to, that question would be raised with another question from mine, um, which is, are we in this field for the short term or the long term? Because if you're here for the short term, go ahead and take that 11 p.m. call. But if you're in it for the long term, there's some sense of regulation for your own self is extremely important. I'm not saying that a case comes up and suddenly you're like, no, I have to take time out for myself. Sorry, I don't know what happens to the client. Obviously not. Please don't do that. Tomorrow, I'll be hearing that this counseling psychologist came and told us, don't do your work. What I mean is that do it in small doses. Hmm? People also need to get used to it. Right now, we are used to asking people to extend their boundaries. So try, and it could be one phone call, it could be one deadline, or it could be something that's not such an emergency but is perceived to be an emergency because people are used to it. So just putting a foot down in that point of time and saying, can I do this by this time? Or can I take out Sunday as a day that's just for me, where I can focus on me as a person, not as a developmental professional? And something that I recommend. Karthik is saying, I've seen many not being able to set boundaries, resulting in burnout, no social life, not being able to spend time for personality development, skills, etc. Hmm. And I think it starts at the core. And what I'd recommend is something that we have seen perhaps, but I don't know how many of us work with. It's the Eisenhower decision matrix. Just for your first step, just for your first step, try and sit down and plan your week with the Eisenhower decision matrix. It has two variants, urgent and important. So, what you have to do now is also very, very urgent. It's also very, very important. So, I have to do it now. मतलब आज करना है, अभी करना है, I have to do it now. It's the green one. It is important, but it's not urgent. Maybe that phone call. So decide, schedule a time to do it. If you send in a report at 11 p.m. at night, I can guarantee you no one's going to be up till 1 a.m. to read it. They will read it in the morning. So it's important, but it's not urgent. So decide, schedule a time to do it. It's urgent, but it's not important. Delegate it. Is there someone? Ranjit mentioned something very nice in that study. He said, social support helps in well being. Is there someone else who you could delegate it to? Because it's not that important. It might be urgent. It might be a file that needs to be sent from your Google Drive or something that you might need to print out. So, can you delegate it? Who can do it for you? And the most important, which we often are unable to do, or we are unable to say no to, which pushes our boundaries, is delete, eliminate. It's not urgent, it's not important. I don't need to do it. Hmm. So this is just something that is used, the Eisenhower decision matrix, in maybe a step towards understanding what your work looks like and taking this theme of what both of you have mentioned, work life integration, is to start in small doses setting your boundaries so that over time we are right now recognizing in that spectrum of mental health the milder parts so that it doesn't reach a more severe part or even burnout. Hmm. Thoughts, questions, concerns?
Sorry to interrupt here, Tamanna. I
Hmm.
request all the participants to ask questions as we have experts over here. As we all were in somehow we were in a some stress. Either it's a job satisfaction or either it's to switch from one company to other. So I feel personally I feel said that we have some stress. Either it can be of family or friends or some other means. So I request all the participants to ask a question. We can also unmute you if you have any questions. You can raise your hand. Thank you.
While we're waiting for others to ask questions, I guess I'll just list out four few advice that one of our really beloved professors, our accounts professor, gave us. Professor Patrick gave us long time ago when we started off. He said, "Eat proper meals, get adequate sunlight, get adequate exercise, eat lots of water, drink lots of water." Four things that sort of told us, at least our batch, he told us: eat proper meals, drink lots of water, get adequate sunlight, get adequate exercise. Uh, it does wonders for your mental health from a very personal experience. Exercise and sunlight really helps you clear your mind and think. And not eating meals. So somebody who loves food like me, I get hangry if I don't get food on time. So it really helps with your mental health.
Hmm. I'm wondering, Lalit, thanks so much for sharing. And I'm wondering that since Eisenhower decision matrix, and rather than from me, just like you shared, Lalit, I'm wondering what I'm also wanted to ask is currently these concerns seem like this is something that we are all in some level or the other might be facing. I'd really like to know what is it that you are currently doing to take care of your mental health concerns. And I'd appreciate anyone, like you don't have to, if you don't want to unmute yourself, you can put it on, um, you can put it on the chat box, but just to engage with this and ask yourself, what is it that you do currently to take care of your mental health?
Mom, I would like to begin with this.
Please do.
Honestly, I felt like taking crayons in my hands and coloring into a balloon. That's what I literally felt like to
Mm.
overcome my Monday to Friday job on a
Mm-hmm.
Saturday and a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very minute thing, crayons and a balloon on a white sheet of paper, but that's what I actually wanted to do.
Hmm. That's lovely. I hope you were able to do it. I don't think it's minute. I think it's quite, it can be quite powerful, even the little things that we do. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Rashika. Anyone else?
That's a little thing known as investing in yourself.
Mm, mm, mm,
As development professionals, we're so focused on doing good for the community, uh, we sort of neglect ourselves. Our hobbies, our interests, talking to our friends. Uh, Very unconsciously, we put it as it's not important, it's not urgent. Let's not bother doing that. That is somewhere where we say no, uh, and we sort of remove it. That's one thing. I don't know. I'd really like to ask a whole lot of people around us. Have we just simply picked up a call and spoken to a friend and like, hey, you know what? I was missing you. How are you doing? What's up? What is a great thing that you've been doing? Tell me about it.
mm.
And Ranjit, probably you could throw some light. How does it feel like as an advanced career professional getting a call from someone from your batch who you've not spoken to for probably a few months altogether? How do you think? What do you think it feels like?
uh, Same, if considering from my own batch, if we get calls, so it's a stress buster, we can say.
Yeah.
So if we are, mostly we are in the same field, maybe if we considering example of skill development, many will be in the same field and then talking to each other their own concerns and then releasing the stress which you are keeping inside. uh,
Yeah.
it gives great relief. So somebody from the same field, that to your own friend calling and then asking about you and then your well-being, and then giving some advices, if you if he thinks I am in some stressful environment by his experience, so that gives great relief. That's from my personal experience. So others might have also faced similar issues, and then one of your friends calls you all of a sudden and then ask you about your well-being and then comforts you, you get great relief.
Rashika, why don't you weigh in? I mean, how does it feel like for you? I
Mm.
guess.
Mm, can you repeat, sir? Like, what
So,
more
so
should I
let's
add
say
to
out of the
this?
blue, you just get a call from your friend.
Hmm.
You know, just saying, "Hi, how are you? I was just thinking of you."
Exactly. So, as Ranjit sir mentioned, that we are in the same sector or maybe in same vertical as well. So I say something like, "This is what happened," and my friend says something. So we relate to that. And when the third person also comes, joins in, so it's more of a network that yes, we all are experiencing the same thing, the same difficulties, and how to implement maybe that scheme in more better way or on the ground level.
Mm.
And talking about the stress buster, yes, apart from discussing the routine work, whatever we are doing, because we are also colleagues in the same organization, maybe in different districts or blocks. And then we also recall our memories. We plan for some trips, then let's go, let's take some leaves, all that. So in that way, it's a buster and relief for our mental peace.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing, Ranjit and Rashika. So that's a stress buster. I have also someone, uh, Jagdish. Uh, Professionals mention 24 hours are not sufficient for the daily schedule. They wish to extend for 48 hours for a day. So, apart from their dual role constrained to an office and home, how can he change to an all rounder, like focus on higher studies while working like a simultaneous third career beginning? Thank you for that question, Jagdish. That's a very important question. It also sounds like there is a lot on this individual, whoever you are referring to, plate. So I think what I'd like to do is go back to boundaries and go back to the Eisenhower decision matrix and understand that individual's priority areas. Because right now I can hear four things. I can hear a third career. I can hear wanting to extend their work to doing much more, meeting deadlines of that current work, home, so managing your home life as well. And actually, fifth, higher studies. So I would suggest that whoever this individual is, that's a lot on their plate. And I understand that you might want to achieve that. But sometimes it's also about realistic expectations from ourselves and idealistic expectations from ourselves. So, can we schedule? Can we prioritize? Because it seems like there's a lot of things going on. And can we identify people or support systems that we may have who can help us in this journey? Within home, is there a partner, spouse, relationship, whatever you're in? So, uh, are there some support systems, mechanisms that I can identify? What is it that is a priority for me? Is it higher studies? Then should I have to reduce some amount of work? Is it work that's a priority? That's money. So I would suggest that it's again about uh, having realistic expectations from self, because somewhere they can lead to us pressurizing ourselves quite unconsciously, and also setting some sense of boundary, because 48 hours per day, even if we do get that, let's imagine, I can assure you we'll want 48 hours more to be added, because there is no end to work. But we as individuals, we do have certain restrictions. So it's just about managing between both of them. I think again, boundaries, Eisenhower decision matrix, and making sure that we don't reach a place of burnout. Thank you so much for your question. And keeping the fact that I think if it's okay, Lalit, I'd just like to close with one more thing uh, before we move forward. Just let me know.
Sure. So we're actually short
Yeah,
on time. We have
yes,
time for another 5 minutes or so.
exactly.
So we'll after your thing, we'll move on towards a more of a closure.
Yes, okay, thanks. Okay, so what I can share is from some of the things that we have already spoken of. A reflection point is because I didn't hear a lot of people, I understand because of varying things, I didn't hear a lot of people talk about what they are doing to take care of their own mental health. Hmm. Thanks, Naman. Naman, I'd love to know what is it that you're already doing? And when you say mental well being, what is it that you're exactly referring to? Because it's quite unique, like you saw in the spectrum. That's a wonderful question. But if I could just get more insight into it, I think it would help cater to the specificity of well being that you're referring to. Yeah. I was saying a reflection point is, and maybe if you want, Naman, we can also take this offline. I'd be more than happy to have that conversation with you because I know we are short on time. Um, I didn't hear a lot of people talk about what they're doing for their own mental health, and maybe a reflection is that we aren't doing anything at all. And maybe that's what we need to change. Bring mental health to our forum. And instead of talking about work life integration, I'd like to suggest a new word: self care integration. So, integrating self care into your own lives. This could be different ways to pause and be with yourself. It just needs to start with this gardening, exercising, taking time to make something, sharing with a friend, doing a shared activity with your spouse, your partner, your children, but just starting and reaching out for support. There are many mental health organizations. For instance, the one I'm currently working with, Mind Piper in Delhi. We offer individualized therapies, community or organizational wide mental well being workshops. So, reaching out to such mental health organizations, reaching out to helplines. There's ICON, there's Samaritans, there's Roshni Trust in Sikandrabad. There is a whole list on this foundation called Live, Love, Laugh Foundation about many helplines that you can get access to and therapy just to try the first session. It's not something that's scary, it's something that's quite doable. So I think what I'd like to end with is self care integration involving understanding that mental health is quite varied, it's a spectrum, and identifying things early on within that spectrum when they are milder, and integrating self care to have better healing and to proceed towards a more mental well being area. Yeah.
Uh, Thank you, Tamanna, for that concluding session, or those concluding remarks. Uh, Naman, just to take what you said, I think what you meant by well-being, and correct me if I'm wrong, my friend, is how do I take care of mental health? Uh,
Mm.
in the self-care matrix and lines, I believe Tamanna has laid out a certain degree of roadmap. But this is something that I always tell a lot of my friends, a lot of my relatives. Uh, it is not shameful to seek help. It is not a sign of weakness or a sign of inadequacy to seek support whenever you require support, right? Uh, I mean, if you have a cold, you go to a doctor, right? If you are feeling stressed out, it is okay to reach out to a counselor. It is okay to reach out to a few trusted friends to talk to them about whatever you are going through. Let me give you an example. When we say therapy, as Tamanna uses the word therapy, uh, our movies have stigmatized therapy to be only electroconvulsive therapy, uh, which in colloquial words mean shock lagana. That is something only a trained psychiatrist would do. Only a professionally qualified, medically qualified psychiatrist would do. And even then, that is done only in extremely rare situations where it's medically required. And it's not as violent as it's shown in movies, right? It's done with anesthesia, it's done under a lot of medical care, so as to not harm you in the long run. Uh, so, I mean, gone are the days of lobotomizing patients. Now it's a lot of care, it's a lot of research that goes before a therapeutic method is put out. It's just as carefully done as it would be done when a vaccine or a new medicine comes out. So, a few things. One, uh, eat your meals on time, drink lots of water, get a lot of sunlight, get a lot of exercise. Uh, Basic things to preserve your sanity for any human being, right? Second thing that I would suggest is prioritize your activities. Look at the self-care matrix as Tamanna has pointed out. And thirdly, if you feel that there is something which is overwhelming, reach out for support. There is no harm in doing that. And vice versa holds true. If somebody is calling out to you for support, please understand that that person has taken a lot of courage and then he or she is reaching out to you, which means you have a sacred duty to hold what he or she tells you confidential. Do not go bandying it about, do not break that person's trust. Uh,
And if you feel that it's something that you cannot handle, please do not assume the role of an agony aunt. Kindly refer the person for professional support, professional advice. Uh, a person doesn't become pagal, and even pagal people, let me tell you this. John Nash was actually labeled as pagal. He sticks into the proper thing. He's a paranoid schizophrenia. He won a Nobel Prize for theories that he propounded when he was at the peak of his dealing with his mental health issues. Deepika Padukone dealt with severe depression, right? uh, there are lots of other celebrities who have dealt with it. So it is not shameful. It is okay to deal with it. And more power to whoever is dealing with this, more power to whoever is seeking support right now. With that, I believe today's session can be called uh, to excuse me, to an end. And stay safe, stay sane, uh, stay healthy.
Mm. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. It was lovely to connect, and hopefully, we can take some of these paths to our daily lives. Yes.
Okay, thank you everyone. Here I would like to, I think Nani sir wants to say something.
Yeah, I was just keenly listening to this all. So I feel enriching perspective from Tamanna and from Rashika, from Ranjit, and Lily. Thank you so much for coordinating this so well. I feel one to realize that mind is also a muscle, just like your body, uh, which needs when a muscle is hurt, which it needs physiotherapy. When it's fine, it needs a little bit of a gym, and to build that kind of resilience. I think we a lot of us focus on the body more than probably recognizing that mind too needs that care. And we, some of us who also realize, maybe sometimes forget uh, when uh, things around us, maybe because of our own assumptions or our own ways of doing things, or because of external world, uh, actually becomes toxic. So realizing that your mental muscle needs that kind of care, which integrates your mind and body together, which therefore puts your own peace, happiness, and joy at the center of it, is important. So thank you so much, Tamanna, for taking this time out with all of us, and for really illuminating, sharing your illuminating thoughts on this. I think this is just the first in the series of activities that we'll do for self-care, and we hope that the team can work with you and work with other people um, who are aware about this topic, and help the development practitioners like us uh, become better at our work and our personal lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nanish, for your wonderful words. Truly hoping that this is not just one, but this conversation keeps going forward, and we integrate this into our daily lives. Thank you so much for having me, and Rashika, Lalit, and Ranjit as well as Karthik.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not to forget.
Never to
Yeah,
miss,
last,
yes.
yes,
Right.
last but not the least, Karthik. First,
Karthik sir and Shikha moms.
Absolutely, yeah, Shika.
first, Shikha.
Yes, Karthik and Shikha. Yes, thank you so much. Karthik was actually like the grandmaster
Agreed.
at the background of coordinating the whole thing, bringing us all together, uh, making sure that we are sticking to the larger plan and play, which is so important. Because mental health is such a wide topic that it's very easy for us to start talking and then run off uh, wild. So yeah, thanks a lot, Karthik, and thank you, Shika, for those wonderful words. I mean, I really hope that I can live up to those words that you spoke.
And thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.